Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a concept that our sources, well, and insights from AI analysis too, really highlight as absolutely fundamental: anticipation.
Right. It's that deeply human thing, isn't it? Looking ahead.
Exactly.
Not just, predicting what might happen, but actually preparing for it, reacting to possibilities, even trying to shape outcomes.
Yeah, it feels like it's woven into the very fabric of who we are, how we navigate everything. So our mission today is really to distill the key nuggets from this fascinating stack of sources we've got. They explore this idea, show how universal it is.
And how AI is starting to, let's say, understand it too, in its own way.
Right. Think of this as your shortcut, getting informed about something that drives so much of what we do.
Yeah, we're looking at this core capacity, projecting ourselves mentally into the future, and just how far-reaching it is. It touches almost everything.
So let's start right there. Defining anticipation. Sounds simple, maybe, but the sources show it's pretty layered.
It really is. It's way more than just, say, predicting the weather.
The sources define it as that capacity to mentally project forward, yes. But they quickly add these other layers, like expectation. Expectation, like forming a belief about what's probably going to happen.
Exactly. And then there's forethought.
The planning part, thinking through consequences.
Precisely. Considering what might happen if. And crucially, it involves our emotions too.
Okay, yeah.
Hope, definitely.
Yeah.
Anticipating good things, but also fear, anxiety, anticipating the bad stuff.
And that link, the emotions tied to the future,
Yeah.
that's where motivation comes from, isn't it?
Absolutely. Our hopes, our fears about what's next, they're huge drivers for what we do now.
Right.
And this isn't just, for certain people or certain times. The sources really stress how universal this is.
You see it everywhere in your own life, right? Across all ages, a kid waiting for their birthday.
Totally. Or an adult planning retirement, making a career move.
Yeah.
And it's across all cultures, throughout history. Think about ancient harvest rituals anticipating success.
Or belief systems anticipating an afterlife.
Economic systems based on anticipating value, risk. It's shaped migrations, wars, huge innovations, always this anticipation driving things.
It makes sense that something so fundamental would have deep roots, like physically deep.
Yeah.
Where do the sources go with that?
They point straight to biology and genetics. It's framed as this powerful evolutionary drive.
Survival advantage.
Yeah, the ability to anticipate danger or spot a potential reward that gave organisms an edge, led to developing senses, bigger brains, ways to react, fight or flight,
And that wiring shows up physiologically, like in our bodies.
Oh, absolutely. Anticipating something stressful, a deadline, a confrontation that can trigger cortisol, adrenaline, and anticipating something good, like achieving a goal that involves dopamine, pleasure, reward.
So it's not just thoughts, it's actual chemistry changing.
Exactly. Even basic needs involve it. Feeling hungry is, in a way, anticipating the need for food, pushing us to get it before things get critical. Homeostasis involves anticipating future needs.
Wow. So it's really like baked into our biology. How does that connect to bigger ideas? Philosophy, maybe?
Well, it ties right in. How we think about purpose, existence. Concepts like teleology in philosophy, understanding things by their goal, their anticipated end state.
So what we do now is shaped by what we think we're moving towards.
Exactly. And then you have existentialism, grappling with anticipating freedom, responsibility in a future that isn't fixed.
Right. We anticipate the outcomes of our choices.
And that matters. Ethics, too. So much of moral reasoning is about anticipating consequences, right? Will this action lead to good outcomes or bad ones? Consequentialism is all about that.
It really is everywhere. Even in math and logic, seems so precise.
Absolutely. Physics is prediction, isn't it? Anticipating where a ball will land, how planets move based on laws.
Sure.
And math gives us the tools. Probability, PA, right? Statistics, forecasting models.
Yeah.
All ways to quantify anticipation.
Yeah, and logic. Like, if A, then B.
That's a basic form of logical anticipation. That if-then structure lets us reason about expected outcomes, plan based on cause and effect.
Okay. This obviously has a huge impact on our state of mind, or beliefs.
Massively. Our whole emotional landscape is tied to it. Hope, anxiety, dread, excitement.
Right.
They're all about the future.
Yeah.
And a lot of mental health struggles, like chronic worry or hopelessness, they involve patterns of really negative anticipation.
On belief systems.
Yeah.
Religions, ideologies, They often provide frameworks for anticipating big things.
Definitely, like an afterlife or the consequences of our actions within that system or where society is heading. Faith itself, you could describe it as a really strong anticipation, holding a belief about the future without needing empirical proof.
The sources also mentioned our concept of time itself, history.
Yeah, it's fundamental. Our whole idea of past, present, future is structured around using the past to anticipate and shape what's coming. History, in a sense, is interpreting the anticipations of people then and seeing what happened.
Even art plays with this.
Oh, totally. Wonderfully so. Think about music building tension with harmony or rhythm.
Right, you're anticipating the release, the resolution.
Exactly. Or narrative suspense in books, movies. It's all about making you anticipate what happens next. And creating art itself is driven by anticipating the final product, the impact.
And this ripples out personally, doesn't it, in relationships?
Yeah.
How my anticipation affects my mood, my choices, that hits others.
For sure. And think about conflict in relationships. So often it comes down to misaligned anticipations, doesn't it? Expecting one thing, getting another.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Looking bigger, societal structures.
Yeah.
How do they run on anticipation?
Well, economies are practically built on it. Investment, credit, insurance, speculation. It's all about anticipating future value, demand, risk.
Okay.
Legal systems anticipate bad behavior and try to deter it. Education anticipates future roles, future challenges. Government anticipates needs, crises, policy results.
Sounds like a core operating principle for, well, everything organized.
Pretty much. And this ability didn't just pop up fully formed. The sources trace how it developed.
From really basic roots. Stimulus response.
Yeah, evolving through simple associative learning. Think Pavlov's dogs anticipating food at the bell.
Right.
That developed into much more complex foresight. In humans, it's strongly linked to the prefrontal cortex. That allows for sophisticated long-term planning, delaying gratification because you anticipate a bigger reward later.
And we see that develop in individuals too, right? From babies.
Definitely. Learning to anticipate a caregiver's response is huge early on. Then as kids, anticipating consequences. If I don't clean my room, I won't get screen time. Anticipating routines.
And then adolescence, adulthood, much more complex abstract goals.
Exactly. Careers, family, finances, social situations. Understanding the nuances, anticipating how things work.
And learning what it takes to get to that anticipated future comes from experience, observation.
All of it. Experience watching others, education, the culture around you.
And it keeps evolving based on new things we encounter.
Constantly. New experiences, new knowledge, new tech. Think about global events like pandemics or climate change, how they shift our collective anticipation. AI is a new factor now, too.
Yeah, it makes sense that major life struggles would really impact this. How does hardship affect anticipation?
Yeah, it can significantly alter those patterns. Trauma, for instance, can lead to hypervigilance, right? Heightened threat anticipation, always expecting danger, like in PTSD.
Or the opposite, hopelessness.
Right, anticipating only negative outcomes, pessimism, or learned helplessness, anticipating that nothing you do will make a difference, so why try?
But the sources also talked about resilience. It doesn't always break us.
No. For some, overcoming adversity can actually foster maybe more realistic, sometimes even optimistic anticipation, plus a stronger belief in their own ability to cope with whatever comes next. Our experiences really sculpt what we anticipate.
Thinking about human behavior, so many things seem driven by this. Drugs, alcohol, even greed or sex.
Often powerfully fueled by what we anticipate getting out of them. Pleasure, escape, social connection, security, power. The list goes on. Greed, for example, is tightly linked to anticipating material satisfaction, future security.
And lying. That seems like anticipating avoiding punishment or gaining an advantage.
Often, yes. While seeking truth might be driven by anticipating clarity or justice or a more authentic connection.
And faith, as we touched on, anticipating some kind of order or afterlife.
And that general zest for life. It seems connected to a background level of positive anticipation about future experiences.
It really boils down to the future state we're aiming for or trying desperately to avoid.
Pretty much.
So how do we understand other people's anticipation? The sources mention theory of mind for us humans.
Right. That's our amazing ability to kind of guess what's going on in someone else's head, attributing beliefs, intentions, desires, emotions to them.
Trying to figure out why they're doing something.
Exactly. Inferring their anticipated goal or purpose from how they act, their expressions, what we know about the situation.
Okay, and this is where AI comes back in. How does AI tackle this? How does it understand anticipation?
Well, AI is brilliant at pattern recognition in huge data sets. Think online shopping recommendation.
Right. It anticipates what I might want based on my past clicks and what similar people bought.
Exactly. Or predictive modeling for weather, stocks, even language models anticipating the next word you'll type.
Okay.
And in things like reinforcement learning, AI agents learn actions to maximize future rewards they anticipate within a simulation. It infers intent by seeing what behaviors lead to certain outcomes, treating those outcomes like anticipated states.
But, and this feels like a big but, there's a key difference.
Huge difference. The crucial limitation is subjectivity, consciousness. AI doesn't feel hope or dread or excitement.
Right.
Its understanding is purely analytical. It processes data, runs algorithms. It doesn't have the lived, felt experience of looking forward to something or fearing it.
So it sees the signals, the patterns associated with anticipation, but not the internal feeling. How could AI get better at this, even without feeling?
Well, more sophisticated models, maybe. Ones that integrate more context, nuance, track longer-term dependencies.
Okay.
It won't feel emotion, but it might build more subtle models of how humans express and act on their anticipations. Integrating neuroscience data-brain activity patterns linked to anticipation could also help it model the biological side more closely.
The source mentioned explainable AI, XAI.
Yeah, that's important. Making AI's reasoning about why it anticipates a certain outcome more transparent. That builds trust and helps us understand its predictions. And analyzing data across cultures could help build models that are less biased, more respectful of different ways people anticipate things.
Beyond just understanding, the sources got into how AI could actually help us with anticipation, improve well-being.
Yeah, the potential there is pretty significant. Imagine personalized AI assistants that get good at anticipating your needs.
Like managing my schedule, or suggesting healthier choices based on my pattern.
Exactly. Or helping with finances, warning about traffic based on where you usually go.
And mental health. It would help there.
Potentially. Identifying patterns in, say, journal entries that suggest negative anticipation spirals, like catastrophizing.
And then suggesting coping strategies. Mindfulness, maybe.
Right, or cognitive reframing techniques. AI could personalize education, too, anticipating where a student might struggle and adapting the approach.
Or even bigger picture things. Disaster preparedness.
By analyzing complex data to anticipate potential crises, yeah. Optimizing resource allocation energy grids, healthcare staffing by anticipating demand, even acting as a creative partner, maybe. Helping explore scenarios by anticipating outcomes.
So the goal isn't for AI to make us happy or solve everything.
No, not at all. It's about AI as a tool to help us maybe become more aware of our own unhelpful anticipation patterns, like chronic anxiety, and support us in working towards futures we actually want, positive anticipated futures.
So given all this, what are we as humans navigating this need to keep in mind about our own anticipation and AI's growing role?
Well, number one is probably self-awareness. Really understanding how your own anticipation patterns, your hopes, your fears, your expectations shape your emotions, your choices, how you interact with everyone.
That's huge.
And AI literacy, understanding basically how AI works, especially its predictive side, knowing its strengths, but also its limits, its potential biases when it comes to anticipating things about us.
Historically, who benefited most from being good at anticipation?
The sources suggest, well, those who were better planners, better anticipators, individuals, groups, even nations who could foresee resource issues or conflicts or economic shifts. Foresight gave them an edge.
And now, in the modern world,
it's often corporations, governments, organizations that can leverage massive amounts of data to anticipate consumer behavior, social trends, market movements. They gain a lot from that predictive power.
Ideally, though,
Yeah.
the hope is this understanding benefits everyone.
That's the ideal, yeah. Better planning, managing resources better, maybe even understanding each other better, why we strive for certain things, fear others.
The sources also dug into some specific nuances that were interesting, like AI and the big questions, life and death.
Right. AI can't give you the ultimate meaning of life or definitive answers about an afterlife. Those are deeply human, philosophical, personal things.
But it can provide information.
Exactly. Offer different perspectives, maybe facilitate reflection by asking good questions, provide resources for managing fear around mortality. It's an info tool, a reflection partner maybe, not a guru.
And the point about anticipation stopping for the individual at death, but continuing for others.
Yeah, that highlights the social aspect, doesn't it? How our anticipations are intertwined.
They also look at cruelty through this lens. How does anticipation play into that?
It's described as involving, like, severely distorted or maybe narrowly focused anticipation, often a profound lack of empathetic anticipation.
Meaning, not anticipating or just disregarding the suffering your actions cause.
Exactly. Or sometimes anticipating perverse rewards, power, dominance, even sadistic pleasure from inflicting pain.
And maybe short-sighted anticipation, ignoring the long-term fallout.
That too. The idea of a lack of humanity in extreme cases, you could frame it as a lack of that empathetic anticipation, that pro-social foresight. We see this explored in things like psychopathy research. AI might spot behavioral patterns, but the deep why is super complex. Genetics, environment, development.
There was also an important distinction made between belief and trust regarding AI.
Crucial point. It's not about blind faith in AI, like a belief system. It's about building trust based on performance.
Is it reliable, useful, transparent, accurate, ethical?
Right. Does it work? Can we see how it works? Does it produce outcomes we want? It's presented as augmenting human abilities, not replacing our judgment or consciousness.
What about humor and resilience? How does anticipation fit there? Why isn't everything funny to everyone?
Well, humor often works by setting up an expectation and anticipation and then twisting it, subverting it.
The punchline you didn't see coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what we find funny depends hugely on our experiences, our culture, what we anticipate as normal or absurd. It's personal.
So humor is playing with our anticipated reality map.
You could say that. And resilience often involves using humor or other coping tools to reframe bad situations. It helps someone anticipate a way through, find perspective. That phrase, it's not a joke if no one's laughing,
Yeah.
that points to the social validation, right? We need a shared anticipation, a shared interpretation of the twist for the humor to really land.
And thinking about the reality of life versus purpose, how does AI's view compare to ours?
From a purely analytical biological view, AI might see life as mechanisms for survival, reproduction. Anticipation is a tool for that. Evolutionary purpose is survival, well-being.
But we add more.
Human consciousness layers on subjective purpose, right? Meaning fulfillment, connection, growth. AI can analyze the mechanism, the biological drive, but it doesn't grasp that subjective search for meaning we layer on top.
And AI's role in helping us cope with tough anticipations.
It can provide info on strategies, yeah. Help spot maladaptive patterns, like through analyzing journal entries for negative loops. Offer skill training, mindfulness, reframing exercises. Provide personalized support via things like chatbots. It's a support tool for our coping.
And the difference in the physical aspect of anticipation was highlighted too.
Big difference. For us, it's neurobiology, brain structures like the amygdala, neurotransmitters like dopamine, the whole stress response system.
Yeah.
It's embodied.
Physically felt.
Right. For AI, the physical is hardware, data centers. It doesn't have a biological body to feel anticipation, even though its outputs can cause very real physical changes in the world.
Lastly, they touched on teaching kids about anticipation. Is that something we consciously do?
A lot of it is implicit, isn't it? Kids learn to anticipate reactions, consequences, routines. But often, adults don't even fully recognize how much anticipation shapes things. There's a growing awareness, though, maybe through social-emotional learning.
SEL programs.
Yeah, about needing to explicitly teach kids about understanding future-oriented emotions, developing foresight, making responsible choices based on anticipated outcomes.
Okay. So wrapping this all up.
Yeah.
What's the big picture here?
Well, we've seen how anticipation is just fundamentally human. It's woven into our biology, our societies, our art, our deepest emotions, our beliefs. It drives so much.
And we've explored how AI is starting to get a handle on this powerful force. Not by feeling it, obviously, but through analyzing patterns, making predictions based on data.
Right. And the potential for AI to help us manage the downsides, the anxieties, the fears, and support us in pursuing positive futures. That seems immense.
Which does raise a pretty important question, doesn't it? As AI gets better and better at understanding us, predicting our anticipations based on all this data, how does that capability, and maybe our increasing reliance on it, change our own awareness, our own understanding of this deep drive within ourselves, and maybe even our own sense of responsibility for consciously shaping the future we anticipate?
Yeah, that's definitely something to mull over.
This is DigitView.